busy person. I have my own syndicated radio show. I produce documentary films. I do countless interviews. I don't have time to watch Glenn Beck. But because the national media has pointed out that Glenn Beck is ripping off the information I cover and then basically spinning it, I have been forced in the last year to monitor his radio show and to watch his television show off and on. Every time I watch him, I see incredible truths being brought out on national television and on syndicated radio, but with lies being injected into it. Media Matters, Newsweek, you name it, have all pointed out that Glenn Beck more and more echoes the information that I cover. But it's more than that. I have refused to sell out. I've been offered big TV deals and even bigger syndication radio deals, and I've said no because I was openly told I'd have to compromise my information. So I didn't sell out. So the system just takes an actor, a facsimile of what I am, and puts him forward so that he will compromise the information. So Glenn Beck goes from being this mainline Republican just 3 or 4 years ago, who was admittedly getting marching orders at the White House from George W. Bush, to the guy that's going to deliver us from world government. But if he was just taking my material and my research and my information and putting it out, I would be honored. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. But that's not what he's doing. This is Glenn Beck taking all the hardcore research I do, where I work 18 hours a day and even dream about this information when I'm asleep, and I put it together with my team that busts their butt, and then I watch him take it and twist it and manipulate it so they can control the left and the right in this synthesis, setting up this world government. Now, recently I was called by one of the biggest magazines in the country, who's doing a big piece on Glenn Beck, basically ripping off and spinning and twisting the information we cover in our research. And they said, well, we've all seen examples of him doing this, but can you send us 5 examples? Aaron and I put together a 6-page document in just the last 2 days that is only the tip of the iceberg, and I'm only going to have time to cover a few of these. But you can see it for yourself, that he doesn't just steal the information, he then degrades it, he then poisons it, he then spins it, to where sometimes I get radio calls from new listeners, or I see people on the street and they say, you're like Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck has been fighting the New World Order, quote, for just about 2 years. I've been fighting the New World Order for 16 years from a truly grassroots, full-spectrum analysis point of view, not from a left-right system that is a control grid that the globalists use to divide the people. And it's painful to see my work being used and taken and twisted. Here's what's happening. If you read a Financial Times of London article with the headline, "And Now for World Government," where they admit it's unelected, it's authoritarian, but they say that it's good for you, Media Matters calls you a kook and a nut. And then Glenn Beck, he plays the part of the patriot who will admit that's going on, but then basically water it down.
Well, now there's call for America to give up our dollar for a global currency. That would lead to a global government. And one world currency and one world financial system is the end game.
Year after year, I had to sit there and watch Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Fox News make fun of people that talked about a one world government. The mainline right-wingers sat there as gatekeepers and told their sheeple viewers, don't listen to it. They're kooks. They're nuts. Now they've basically admitted all this is happening because we're so far down the line.
And those people who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
conspiracy
government.
Theorists.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
So here comes Glenn Beck telling you that world government's run by Van Jones and George Soros when they're mid-level players at best. It's disgusting. This is our future we're talking about. And the very Fox News that told conservatives what was kosher to look into and what was not kosher to look into is now putting forward this prancing creature to be our leader so they can destroy him later to discredit our movement against world government. Google is allowed to do it because they were set up by MIT and the Central Intelligence Agency, and they office out in their development firm out of the NASA complex. And we've had Mr. Steele and other CIA high-level agents on in technology to document who the people are at the CIA. Glenn Beck has ripped us off on the Google boycott and then spun it deceptively.
First of all, they are working really, really closely with the government. That's okay. They have a close relationship with the NSA. Okay. They're working way too close for my comfort with hardcore leftists. I'm really not sure that I want my search engine involved in government overthrows, good or bad.
He adds the proviso, one of many deceptive lies, that I'm not like the liberals who think that Bush was spying on them without warrants. I'm just mad at them because they're liberals.
I'm not afraid that Google is reading my email or tapping your phone lines or stealing grandma's recipes. That kind of paranoia is reserved for the left during the Bush administration with Microsoft.
He's telling conservatives you shouldn't be for the Fourth Amendment, that conservatives don't have that territory. He's ripped us off 6 months after we detailed that top Obama and former Clinton advisors were openly calling for a new Oklahoma City bombing to be blamed on domestic groups and to spike Obama's ratings.
They are setting up another Oklahoma City. They are claiming that one is coming, and they've already marked the one who caused it.
He ripped us off months after we aired the exact same tapes that he later re-aired of the socialist eugenicist George Bernard Shaw talking about killing people who aren't useful to the New World Order.
Mussolini look.
Then he howls Hitler. Then he does the fascist salute.
He is condemned, although he is a most amiable man. He is condemned to go through life with that terrible and imposing expression.
He's amiable,
which really
he's good.
does a great deal of injustice to his kindly nature. But his kindly nature.
In my documentary film, Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, 2007, we detailed David Rockefeller's own memoir, where he bragged that, yeah, I want world government.
David Rockefeller admits in his own memoirs that he wants to destroy the United States. Right. He's a
Glenn Beck later, in November of 2010, covered the exact same quotes. There are hundreds of these examples.
Some people even believe that we are part of a secret cabal, working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it.
An article written by David Rockefeller for the New York Times. Rockefeller openly lauds and endorses Mao Zedong's actions while celebrating their command and control system. Communist China is the model, planned society for the New World Order.
This is what it's going to look like, 2025 global landscape. This is a government report. The model of China is the goal that these guys are saying everybody's pretty cool with. This is what's going to come.
Months after I interview people like Damon Vickers or Gerald Celente, Glenn Beck has them on the show and asks them the exact same questions that we've posed on my broadcast. In the last 8 months, we've launched more than 70 successful Google bombs, where I tell my listeners to search key terms. Now, suddenly in the last month, Glenn Beck has begun the Google bombs, telling his listeners to search a certain term.
Pause the show and look up the word caliphate. Here's the chart. Caliphate. Oh, by the way, we're on at 2 p.m.
And then bragging on their site, we've got over 60 at #1, including 3 to 4 to 5 top terms in a row. Here's another example. In the last 4 years, since 2007, I have covered every week the Pentagon and the British Ministry of Defense drills and public reports they put out preparing for martial law during societal collapse due to economic crisis. Suddenly, Glenn Beck covers it almost word for word.
If we have shortages of food, if we have rolling blackouts, there could be civil unrest, there could be looting, rioting, and that might be the impetus for the government to declare martial law.
You know what? I don't think you're a couple of years away from something like that.
Of all these issues, there's one that really stands out, and that's the obscure issue of the federal government for over 35 years having a secret program through the county health departments to take blood from all newborn babies for a secret DNA database. I broke this story more than 15 years ago. And after we pushed this out into the mainstream, Glenn Beck was the only major figure to pick up on it, to his credit. But still, the mainstream media then makes jokes about him, and George Soros-run Media Matters says that he's making it up, even though the federal and state governments are losing lawsuits over it. And then there's other examples, things that actually make me question if Glenn Beck is a good guy or a bad guy. Maybe he could be a good guy, trying to work through the system. Because I've challenged him, cover John P. Holdren, the White House science czar, calling for sterilants in the water.
Which one of us actually says, I want to breathe in dirty air and drink in, dirty water? The kind with sterilants in it.
Cover the eugenicist. Cover the move for a world government.
The only way to really stop their imagined disaster to save the planet is to limit the number of human beings on this planet. 1 child per family. That's negative population growth. I'm against it, and I think I'm not alone.
And then weeks later, he covers it word for word. But then he always doubles back with spin and deception. Glenn Beck is like orange juice. It's nutritious. It's delicious. But I didn't tell you the rest of what Glenn Beck is. He's a teaspoon of cyanide, enough to kill 10 elephants in every pitcher. And that's it. That's what's so bad about him. You see the orange juice, it's sitting on the counter, you pour it in your glass. Hey, Google's NSA. Hey, Google's overthrowing countries to put radical Muslims in. He doesn't tell you, so the military-industrial complex has somebody to basically bomb. He gets your confidence with the truth with that glass of orange juice, and he puts a teaspoon of poison in it. It's unbelievable. The guy's a complete snake. When you watch it, it's such 21st century high-tech propaganda, clearly with psych warfare chiefs, with PSYOP degrees, black ops, loading those teleprompters. It is so evil. I don't like my identity being stolen. And then I don't like somebody in my name, in my mission, twisting what I've done. I end up having mainstream media attack me constantly, saying I'm the little Glenn Beck. No, I'm not the little Glenn Beck. I'm up towards the fount. I'm up the river where the water came from, not downstream where Glenn Beck is basically urinating into the truth. Let's get that straight. Do you know what it's like to pour your heart and soul out, to be death-threatened, to be physically attacked, to not go along with the payoff, sellout offers, and then to feel good and to have integrity, and then to see somebody come along and basically as an actor rip off the information you're covering and then adulterate it? We're in a fight for the heart and soul of this country. The Tea Party, started by the Ron Paul movement in 2007, has been partially co-opted by the neocons. The Tea Party coalition in Congress went ahead and voted for the Patriot Act. We were sent by law enforcement 2 years ago, the internal government documents, MIAC, Homeland Security, where it has nothing to do with men in caves. It's all about the American people, gun owners, libertarians, conservatives. If the people don't get wise to Glenn Beck, we don't have any future. I mean, it's really just that simple. But the fact that he has to mimic us and take on our political colorations as camouflage does show how far we've come. We have a global government run by private banking cartels that's taken over our nation. And Glenn, we cannot allow you to blame it all on a mid-level nobody like Van Jones and tell us he's the top of the pyramid. Glenn, I'll really start to believe in you when you do a show on Rupert Murdoch, admittedly being one of the key people behind the move for global carbon taxes to fund this new private world government. And I want to tell the globalists something. You think Glenn Beck's co-opted my message and my information? No. This door swings both ways. This is a two-way street, a double-edged sword. We're only getting more viewers and more listeners because of Glenn Beck. People are using him as a doorway, and then they're finding the real bona fide information. So in the end, it's like God says in the Bible, no weapon formed against us shall prosper. You give us lemons, we're going to make lemonade. It's just that I get more angry at Beck than like an evil Mr. Maddow or Slimeball on MSNBC, because they are willing, open servants of evil. And you're over here posing so you can basically fill the chair of the liberty movement so that you can basically co-opt us in the end. But then I think back to Mr. Maddow, and I think back to even Keith Olbermann. Back when Bush was in office, they'd talk about Patriot Act and torture and evil and corruption. And now they don't really do it because they were playing the part of anti-establishment when Bush was in. Now that they see their wing as being in power of the same bird of prey, they're playing the part of the establishment. But I know you guys think you can spin it later and you only care about this cycle and the next election coming up and they'll have a new flim-flam man by then. But cycles are getting faster and faster, closer and closer. People are getting more and more wise. And you guys are going to fail. You can't stop the signal. You can't stop the truth. And you can't rip off our information without being exposed.